Greetings, mortal! Thou art welcome to the Comic Cave. I'm Ramsey, aka Captain Away, and today I'm looking at the 2012 to 2014 series, Thor, God of Thunder, part of Marvel Now! Odin, Allfather of the Norse gods, decided one day that his son Thor, the God of Thunder, needed to learn some humility and thus gave him the mortal form of Dr. Donald Blake. But while on vacation in Norway, Dr. Blake would discover a stick inside a cave, and when he struck that stick against a rock, it would magically transform into the mighty hammer Mjolnir, and Blake would transform into the mighty Thor. And yeah, I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce these words because I don't speak this language and I've never studied it, so I'm really sorry in advance, and you're just gonna have to put up with it if you're gonna watch the video, and I'm sorry. Anyway, now with all the elements he needed to become a superhero, Thor would join the ranks of Marvel heroes, even becoming a founding member of the primary Marvel super team, the Avengers. This ensured Thor's place as an important part of Marvel mythology, and he would go on to play an important role in various stories, including major crossovers, some of which I've covered, like Infinity Crusade, and some I haven't, like Fear itself. But most of that isn't really important, at least not for this video, because when writer Jason Aaron and artist Isa Drivich took over the series as part of Marvel Now, they were able to start fresh in a lot of ways with the character and the direction it was headed. Not that there's not anything about the past you wouldn't want to know going into this. Thor's history with love interest Jane Foster will come into play, for example. And there's the fact that within continuity at this point of time, Odin was dead and Odin's wife Freya, as the All-Mother, was ruling in Asgard that, following Civil War, had been relocated to the skies above Broxton, Oklahoma. But beyond that, there's really not too much you need to know because again, this series will go about attempting to establish a new status quo for the God of Thunder. So let's see just what that is and take this away. The comic opens a little over 1100 years ago, if I did my math correctly. Which I might not have. I don't know. Math is dumb. We're here to hang out with a young Thor, pre-Hammer, who spends his days on Midgard. That's Earth for you uninitiated out there. Mostly just drinking mead and having sex with lots and lots of women. You know, godly stuff. But this particular night of revelry is cut short by the appearance of the head of a dead god in the water nearby. One I guess is supposed to be a Native American god from the dialogue in The Feathers. Not sure about the accuracy of that depiction, seems a little old school stereotypical to me, but it is just remains, and Ribic is apparently Croatian, and again I don't exactly know, so I guess we can give them some leniency here. The sight of a dead god disturbs Thor, but it won't be the last of such things we see even in this first issue. Before the issue is done, we'll see an old Thor living as King of Asgard in what seems to be a dead universe eons in the future, and of course our regular current timeline Thor. All three versions of Thor will continue to be important to the entirety of Aaron's run on Thor, which is primarily why I'm starting my series coverage here, but for now let's focus on current Thor, or Avengers Thor as he'll kinda be known within the comic. Avengers Thor answers the prayers of a young girl on a faraway planet and is disturbed to discover the world has no gods, but he soon learns why. In that world's heavens, he finds the godly inhabitants all butchered and left to rot. Disturbed by this, Thor goes to the library of the gods, named the Halls of All-Knowing, and a place called Omnipotent City. Cool name. There he finds information that leads him across the universe where he discovers many more gods that have been slain, and he realizes that he is partly to blame because he never truly stopped Gorr the God Butcher when he had the chance. Not that we've met Gorr the God Butcher yet, this will be his first appearance, but let's go ahead and give some background. Gorr was an alien from a harsh, barren planet, and he got sick of how everyone in his family and his tribe continued to believe that the gods would provide despite the fact that they continued to suffer no matter how much they prayed. And they did suffer quite a lot. Gorr's pregnant wife was killed by a rock slide, and his last remaining child would die of starvation as the tribe wandered around looking for food. But when Gorr finally gets angry enough to criticize his tribe for relying on the gods instead of trying to find ways to fix their own problems, they simply stone him and leave him to die. That's when two beings suddenly fall out of the sky, a being in black and another in gold, both having apparently slain the other. Not knowing what else they could be, Gorr assumes they're gods, and that just stings all the more. Because even worse than praying to non-existent gods to solve your problems is praying to ones that do exist and hear those prayers and yet still refuse to do anything. At least in Gorr's view. To make matters worse, it turns out that one of the gods is still alive, and when it asks Gorr for help, this only further enrages the future Butcher. And he proceeds to slaughter his first god using the weapon from the God in Black, which mutates and shapeshifts at will for him, even becoming a suit that allows him to travel through space. Gorr then goes around the universe slaughtering gods, eventually finding his way to Earth way back in the 1100 plus years ago timeline I mentioned, where he slaughtered that Native American god as well as the early Slavic gods of Chernobog and Belobog. That last bit he does right when young Thor and a band of Vikings had just arrived in the pre-Russian wilderness, and Thor's desire to fight the pre-Russian gods becomes a passion to slay Gorr for his crimes. I mean, did Thor not come here to kill them himself? What exactly makes what Gorr has done worse? I don't really get that. Maybe you shouldn't throw stones there, Thor. Just compensating for not being able to throw hammers yet, I guess. Gorr proves more powerful than Thor could have possibly expected though, and nearly kills our hero, but, surprise, Thor lives. Big spoiler there, I know. While Gorr is taunting Thor, the Thunder God hits them both with lightning, knocking them both out and separating them. Thor's Viking clan gets Thor and heals him up while he's knocked out, and days later when young Thor finally wakes up, he storms off to finish the job he started, heading to a cave that another slain Siberian god points him to. But Gorr captures Thor in the cave and proceeds to torture him for days, but in an unexpected twist, the Viking clan joins Thor in the cave and overpowers Gorr, who doesn't want to attack the regular people because he's only interested in saving them from their gods. While Gorr is distracted, Thor takes his mighty axe, Jarnborn, and seemingly slays Gorr. Only present-day Avengers Thor realizes that he was wrong and Gorr must still be alive. So he returns to the cave, for some reason expecting Gorr to still be there, but instead finding only the mad god Shadrach, who will claim to be the god of many different things, including wine and waterfalls, song and somersaults, kittens and coconuts, and pancakes and tambourines. God of pancakes. That sounds awesome. He's actually, though, the god of bombs and fireballs, but we'll get to that. For now, his primary role is to let slip to Thor that Gorr has plans for something called Kronux. Do you guys realize how annoying it is to try and make clear who I'm talking about when you have 3 characters named Thor and 1 named Gorr? Whose genius idea was this? I do this for you guys, because I'm a professional. Thor takes Shadrach to the Halls of All-Knowing so they can figure out what Kronux is, which turns out to be some kind of city of gods of time. And in that city, Gorr uses the time god's control of time to go back to the very beginning of time and kill one of the oldest proto-gods and take his heart. And then, from there, he travels into the far distant future to the time of King Thor. Avengers Thor follows him into the future, but apparently arrives 900 years after Gorr did, discovering his old self and a future Asgard besieged by endless armies of the symbiote-like ghouls that serve as Gorr's mindless servants. But once Middle Thor arrives, the creatures vanish. So the two Thors get together and take a space longship to ride on a final voyage to attack Gorr. Gorr in these past 900 years, though, has been busy gathering together gods from all over the universe to help him build a giant moon. Wait, that's no moon. It's a space station! Or a bomb, I guess. A space bomb station? A space bombination? Okay, fine, it's just a bomb. But still a special bomb. A bomb designed by Shadrach. As the god of bombs, Shadrach used to build and explode bombs randomly in the universe to kill thousands of mortals for the amusement of the gods. So Gorr, of course, butchered all of Shadrach's fellow gods, cutting off Shadrach's eyelids to force him to watch while he did. By the time he was done, Shadrach was ready to do whatever Gorr wanted to make it all end. And what Gorr wanted was a chronal bomb, a bomb that, when it exploded, would kill gods everywhere in the universe and all across time, destroying them from ever having existed at all. At one point, Gorr also pulls young Thor, for some reason that's completely unclear, into this far distant future as one of his slaves. And there, young Thor meets his future granddaughters, the 3 goddesses of thunder, Atli, Elisiv, and Frigg, Woden's daughter. The 3 girls are also slaves, but they're secretly plotting to attack the bomb, saving some of the explosive material filling the bomb in the hope of using it to destroy the bomb itself. Oh, and Also, one of them has the hots for young Thor, not realizing who he is because incest is hilarious. Isn't it? Isn't it? With the bomb only days away from being finished, they realize they're running out of time to attack it, but also that attacking it would be suicide, especially since none of the gods seem to have access to their godly powers anymore. Thor, still so young and angry and with so much to prove, simply takes their sabotage bomb and, managing to summon up one small thunderstorm, makes his way up to the Godbomb and attacks it. The explosion is big enough to send him flying into space, although he apparently does no damage to the Godbomb. Well, poop. In space though, he does run across the older two Thors, which gives me my new favorite moment from any comic ever. This moment here, where Thor gets slapped in the face by a shark. Ah yeah, that's the stuff. That's the stuff comics were made for. This is the pinnacle of art right here, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone else can put their pencils down and just walk away. We'll never top the Thunder God being slapped in the face with a space shark. Love it. Oh, and yes, they're sharks because they're space sharks, I guess. Guess Jason Aaron went into comics writing class with Justin Jordan. But obviously Aaron got more out of it because I don't remember seeing any Green Lanterns getting bitch slapped by a shark. Where was I? Gorr, right. So the three Thors launch an all-out final attack on Gorr, but the attack is mainly in vain, and even after the younger two Thors attempt to throw the Butcher into the sun, he somehow manages to overcome all three gods. Although for some reason doesn't choose to kill them right then and there, I guess expecting the Godbomb to just take care of it for him. We see here that Gorr has also built a life for himself on this planet with a wife and a child, though where those people came from is initially unclear. When Gorr reveals to his wife that he's ready to set off the bomb, she calls him her god, and Gorr, yeah, he don't like that. So he slays his wife and returns to his work, but Gorr's son is horrified by what his father has become and so helps the Thors to get into the Godbomb and fight his dad. They're too late to stop the Butcher from setting off the bomb, but Thor somehow absorbs the black energy that powers Gorr and the Godbomb inside of him, and then reveals to us that the weapon that Gorr has been using is actually called All Black, the Necroblade, and while it was meant to kill gods, it was also meant to be wielded by one. So Thor uses the energy against Gorr, and Gorr's son confronts his father with the truth that the God Butcher has been unwilling to face. That in his quest to become a God Butcher, Gorr has turned himself into a god. The boy then evaporates into nothingness, as Gorr's family had apparently just been created as an extension of Gorr's control of the All Black, which maybe even Gorr himself didn't quite realize. Overcome with grief, Gorr begins to wail, but young Thor simply chops his head off, finally bringing an end to the saga of the God Butcher. The three Thors all return to their respective homes, but the question Gorr raised in Avenger Thor's head, the question of whether or not gods can truly be worthy of being worshipped, is one that will haunt him for quite some time after this. Now, back from the future, Thor returns to Midgard and spends time among various humans, including joining a death row inmate for his last few minutes on Earth, hanging out with people of various other faiths, and crashing some protests filled with protesters holding signs that read, "God hates you." I'm really unclear on why this particular panel is here, and it actually bothers me kind of a lot. We're given no reason as to why Thor is attacking these people, or what their beliefs actually exactly are. I mean, I tried to find answers online, and people have credited this group as being everything from extreme evangelical Christians to being agnostics and atheists. It's unclear, but honestly, it's just uncomfortable. The rest of the issue is focused on the concept that Thor is trying to live up to the idea of being a god worthy of worship, of being a good, caring, and humble god who accepts all faiths and people. But then he attacks this group for no apparent reason, possibly because of their beliefs in regards to God and/or gods. It just feels really wrong to me. Anyway, also significant in this issue is we meet up with Jane Foster, who is revealed to be possibly dying from breast cancer, one enemy that Thor, to his frustration, is unable to simply punch. We also meet Rosalind Roz Solomon at her S.H.I.E.L.D. graduation party. She had apparently asked Thor to come on a video on YouTube, which Tony Stark apparently saw, and I guess thinking this young girl was hot, told Thor he should totally show up. And he does, which will be the start of her being a member of Thor's extended cast for quite a while after this. But before we can get to that, we have to go to Niflheim, essentially the frozen hell of the Nine Realms. well, 10 realms now, really, as a realm called Heaven has been added to them so that the Spawn character Angela could be added to the Thor lineup as his long-lost sister raised by angels. I'll probably talk about her more in a future video. All the remaining realms have names I can't really pronounce, like Alfheim and Svartalheim and Jotunheim and Vanaheim and Lochheim. Okay, that last one might not be real. Or is it? It's not. Niflheim is currently being raided by Dark Elves, one of the major races of the 9 realms from Svartalheim originally, who have come to rescue an old Thor villain from his imprisonment, the Ninth Doctor. Oh, sorry, I mean Malekith the Accursed. Is that how you say that? Malekith? I really hate this video. Freed from his imprisonment, Malekith then goes with those Dark Elves loyal to him to attack his own homeland, slaying any Dark Elves that don't immediately pledge allegiance to him. A number of Dark Elves then flee the realm, attempting to take refuge in other realms, but wherever they go, Malekith follows. Thor wants to wage war on Malekith, but he finds himself forbidden to do so by the Congress of Worlds, a semi-democratic group of senators from every realm who have come together on Asgard to form a sort of ruling council for all the realms. And they've apparently decided that a rampaging Thor would be a bigger problem than a rampaging Malekith, if that makes sense to anyone. But at the same time, they're not planning on just letting the Dark Elf run free. Instead, they form a League of Realms, consisting of Thor himself, as well as a Light Elf named Ivory Honeyshot, who carries 2 guns with iron bullets, a dwarf named Screwbeard, who loves explosives, a troll named Ood, and a giant that they simply call Augie, who doesn't really ever say anything. They're also joined at the last minute by Waziria, a dark elf who had her arm chopped off by Malekith when Thor had attempted to stop the accursed elf earlier. Waziria seems to have some magic herself and uses a branch to grow herself a new arm, and the group then goes hunting for Malekith. But their enemy seems to always be just one step ahead of them, and Screwbeard even ends up losing his hand in a battle with the Dark Elves as Malekith pins Screwbeard's arm to a wall while it's holding an explosive. Ood then cuts the arm off to save the dwarf, and following the explosion, Malekith has disappeared. It doesn't help any that the League can't stop fighting amongst themselves, so in order to give them a sense of camaraderie, Thor gets them all drunk together and has sex with Waziria, all of which apparently works. But I'd say this all primarily happens because the League is just intended as a direct replacement for Thor's previous companions of Sif and the Warriors 3. And just in case you don't pick up on that yourself, the comic goes ahead and points it out for you at a later point. But still, there's yet another battle where Malekith proves to be one step ahead of them, even causing the death of poor Augie. Aw, for such a quiet guy, we really came to like you, Augie. So at this point, everyone decides that they must have a spy in the group. Everyone, of course, assumes it's Waziria, although as she points out, that's rather racist. And Thor instead decides the betrayer must be Ood the Troll, taking his punishment into his own hands and flat out smashing in the troll's head with Mjolnir. Yeesh. This prompts the rest of the League to leave, but Thor convinces Waziria alone to stay, and he takes her to where the leaders of the Dark Elves have taken refuge on Earth. When Malekith of course shows up there as well, Thor takes this as confirmation that Waziria really was the traitor. Only then he spits up a giant centipede looking thing, which, gross, because it turns out Thor was the traitor all along. Because, get it? Malekith bugged him. He bugged Thor. Did you get it? Bug? It's funny. Like incest. Hilarious. But then the rest of the League, including a including Ood the Troll with his head still on his shoulders, show up and help in the fight. Because it turns out Thor had picked up one of Loki's tricks somehow and faked Ood's death in order to prove Waziria was the real traitor, and had never actually killed Ood at all. While all of that didn't quite work out the way he expected, it still does allow the League to finally overpower and defeat Malekith. Only before they can kill him, the other Dark Elf leaders simply elect him the new king of the Dark Elves. Apparently, Dark Elves mostly respect those they fear, and they fear no one more than Malekith the Accursed. Well spit. Freya the Allmother on Asgard decides to agree to the appointment once Malekith finishes his sentence in hell, but he asks for his kingly right to have someone serve his time by proxy, and Waziria, for no good goddamn reason, just up and volunteers. WTF, Waziria. WTF. I guess it's good to be the king. Feeling somewhat defeated, Thor returns to Midgard, where he spends basically the rest of the series helping Roz Solomon in her fight against the evil corporation Roxxon. Roxxon is essentially attempting to loot the entire planet and kill all wildlife so that all food and resources come from things Roxxon sells, like creating pollution that is drastically contributing to climate change while pretending he found a solution in mining new icebergs from the frozen Jovian moon of Europa. Although, not gonna lie, I think it would be pretty cool to get the chance to drink Europa water. I mean, although I guess theoretically it's possible it could be full of bacteria that we as Earthlings would have zero resistance to, we haven't proven any life of any sort exists on Europa, so it's entirely possible that that's not the case. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just getting sidetracked again. But speaking of getting sidetracked, fun fact, Roxxon's current CEO, Dario Agger, mentions right here that they've separated from the Kronos Corporation, the company previously owned by the former Soviet Alexander Lukin that I mentioned in last week's video, with this specific merger happening during that Captain America series. Cool. Roz and Thor are worried about the ecological damage Agger and his company are doing to the Earth, and so Thor uses storms to attack and destroy some of Roxxon's most polluting plants. But Agger, who is apparently a minotaur for some reason, gets his people to come up with an idea for how to attack Thor right back. And that way is to move into Broxton, Oklahoma and buy everything up and start polluting the air. They also sue Thor and file a restraining order on him, meaning he wouldn't even be able to stay in Asgard since it's too close to their businesses in the town. Agger then also hires another old Thor villain, Ulik, who was kinda supposed to be dead at this time, but what you gonna do? And has him and his trolls attack Broxton the next time Thor shows up. And during that battle, the entire town is completely flattened. So the Asgardians accept that it's too dangerous for them to live on Midgard and decide to leave. Before they go, Thor leaves behind his personal palace as a new home for the good people of Broxton, and Thor also asks Jane to serve as Midgard's ambassador to the Congress of Worlds, which she accepts. There is some other stuff going on in the comic as well, as we see some stories of young Thor, and also keep flashing forward to stories of King Thor, who we do see fighting Galactus to stop him from eating a barren, empty Earth in the far future. During the battle, King Thor actually utilizes the All Black to stop Galactus, but that still just barely proves to be enough to stop the Devourer of Worlds. And by the end of the battle, the All Black seems to be destroyed. The battle leaves King Thor bleeding, but where his blood hits the sand, life blossoms once again. So Galactus, in defeat, goes to instead eat Mars, only for the All Black, which apparently survived, to consume him before he can. But that story won't be expanded on here. Instead, we end with a story entirely focused on Thor's granddaughters as they recount for us an origin story for Malekith, and also discover a secret book that contains the story of a mysterious Lady Thor. Ooh, what could that be? Could that be a series I'm going to cover next week? You bet your sweet Bippy. So for now, we'll get to the breakdown. So this comic is good, I guess? I don't know, I'm actually struggling a bit with just how I feel about it. Gorr is a pretty interesting villain. I like the backstory they give him, and the fact that the Necrosword so obviously sets up options for things to do with symbiotes like Venom that, yes, Marvel will absolutely run away with in upcoming Venom comics. But outside of that, this comic doesn't exactly grab me. A lot of the story is just kind of dull. Thor spends most of the series just kinda walking around and brooding to himself, and as I established in Far Sector, characters that mostly walk around brooding are not my favorite. And that's kinda how the whole comic feels, honestly, like it's just wandering around brooding. There are some humorous moments sprinkled in the later half, and a lot of the action is honestly pretty good, but mostly this comic can be a real downer, despite the fact that it doesn't necessarily feel like it's trying to be for most of the series. Overall though, I think these complaints mostly come in because it is a well-made series. Aaron is clearly a talented writer, and Rebich's painting style art is absolutely fantastic. I really feel like you could remove all the text from this series and Rebich would convey almost all of the meaning just in the expressiveness of the art, and you would probably get much of the same experience out of the comic overall. And that's crazy. So I'm giving this series a recommendation level of high. Whatever misgivings I may have, there truly is enough interesting and good here to recommend it, and it is essentially the setup for literally the next 10 years and counting of Thor comics, so if you want to follow along, you might as well start here. The collected editions get 1. Roxxon logo, 2. Space Sharks, and 1. Mjolnir. Which is a range from kind of bad to, I guess, pretty good. And that would then break down like this. Volume 2 is 6 issues with only a very short bonus cover gallery as an extra. Volumes 3 and 4 are both 7 issues with a slightly larger cover gallery. Volume 1 is only 5 issues, but it does contain a bonus cover gallery and a sketchbook from Rebich, which is pretty amazing since he apparently doesn't do any sketches on his own, and always works straight to the page. So he specifically created the sketchbook just to add it to this collection. Crazy and cool. Thanks everybody for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I was originally planning on covering just one Thor comic for the new movie, but that quickly expanded to 2 comics, and while I was working on those, it quickly expanded to this comic as well. So that's why this comic is coming out a bit late, because it was added pretty late into my roster. But that means yes, I am going to cover the next 2 series before this month is up. So if you want to stick around for those, or you just can't wait for me to get back to the New 52, or you just kind of like my content in general, or hey, you're just a nice person, I don't know, you could be anyone. Then please go ahead and click those like and subscribe buttons so you can be sure to be here next time, and I hope to see you then, right here, in the Comic Cave.